What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. Well, in today's video, I want to give you an update on what's happening with Bitcoin because things are looking interesting, and I want to tell you what I'm starting to expect next. And so with that said, let's not waste any more time at all, and let's get straight into the video. Now, to give you a little bit of context on what's been going on recently, we have been tracking this macro breakout for Bitcoin. We have been tracking the fact that Bitcoin, of course, had been in that descending channel for several months, and we finally got the breakout here. Of course, it didn't come easily, and there were a couple moments where we started to get a little bit nervous, like, oh shoot, maybe we're gonna get a pullback, maybe the breakout's gonna fail, but this breakout has not failed. We have been in a great spot. We finally pushed off towards the upside, opening up a ton of room to the bottom side, and in a very good spot right now. And so what I want to do today is explain to you a little bit about what I'm seeing right now, what I'm expecting next, and what I'm doing as a result of it. And so with that said, let's get into it. Now guys, I actually will let you know I just worked out a deal with an exchange that I've been trading on a ton recently. It's called BTC, and you are actually able to get a 10% deposit bonus back on all deposits over $500. Guys, this means if you deposit $2,500, they're going to give you $250 back just like that. Boom, immediate 10% return, and they're going to give you up to $10,000 per user, and you're going to get a code, the SVIP1, that gives them 40% lower trading fees. This is by far one of the most insane deals I've ever worked out with an exchange for you before, so feel free to go check that out down below. Again, I have been doing a lot of trading over on BTC quite recently, and you can trade Bitcoin on up to 500x leverage. With I wouldn't recommend 500x leverage, but you can trade it on up to 500x leverage, and you don't have to KYC. There are some features that you can access if you do KYC, but to trade and deposit and withdraw, you don't need to KYC. So feel free to go check out all that information down below and let me know what you think. Okay. Now, looking at Bitcoin, let's talk about what comes next. Let's talk about the next steps from here. Well, I will actually let you know that I am still getting I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, I'm a little bit nervous about what we're seeing from Bitcoin right now. Now, the reason that I say that is because it's starting to give me some early signs that some sort of pullback could possibly happen. Now, before we talk about why I think the pullback might happen, I will remind you I don't care if Bitcoin pulls back. Quite frankly, I don't care. The primary reason why I don't care is because the door is already open. The moment that you get a breakout of this nature, even if you fall back into this thing for some reason, being able to break out of this again would be so easy the next time around. It would be like butter. It would almost be like it doesn't exist. We've destroyed this liquidity zone for the bears, and them forcing us back in it literally wouldn't cause much. So if we get some bad news or something like that that forces Bitcoin's price down, I'm gonna just do some buying because I do expect us to break out easily again. That's reason number one. Reason number two is from an intrinsic perspective, what's happening in the world of crypto. I think there's so much bullish news. I think there's so many bullish opportunities. I think there's so many bullish catalysts on the way. I don't care if crypto pulls back in the short term. Makes no difference to me. I do have a second channel down below where we talk about those things if you'd like to go check it out. Overall, I'm very bullish right now, and so I don't care if we get a pullback in the short term. And the third reason is because we've opened up all this room to the downside. What you have to understand is that we don't want to, at the end of the day, go back into this channel. At the end of the day, although it's fine if we do, we don't want to enter back into this blue zone. And so if Bitcoin's price does pull back in a situation like this, things are a little bit more nervous, right? Because it's easy to re-enter back into here. But in a situation like this where we're at 76K, I mean, we could fall, Bitcoin's price itself could fall 10% without falling back into that blue zone. And I don't just see us crashing 10 or 15% without terrible news. And so because of that, even if Bitcoin's price does start pulling back, probably going to be fine. We're probably going to be able to build support on top of this channel and continue upwards. So in the macro, not a big deal, don't care. But let's talk about the short term and why I do think that a pullback could be on the way, just so that you're aware of what's happening on the shorter time frames. Well, there's a couple primary reasons. A lot of them do circulate around our RSI. Okay. First things first, what we are seeing right now is macro bearish divergence on the 4-hour charts. And what that looks like is us seeing a high into a higher high here on Bitcoin, and a high and a lower high here on Bitcoin's RSI. When you see something like this, it's a clear sign that although the price is pushing upwards, it's losing steam and momentum, and its strength is not as strong as it was previously. And typically when that happens, you are going to expect to see some sort of pullback. It's just normally what happens. And so because of that, that's warning sign number one, that some type of short-term pullback could be on the way. Now, warning sign number two is more of what we're seeing on the shorter time frames, okay? What you can see is that as Bitcoin's price is starting to move upwards like this, we are seeing the RSI setting lower highs. So now we're getting consistent lower highs on the shorter time frame, and we're seeing those consistent higher highs here on that same shorter time frame. Channels like this typically don't go well because it's like, okay, although we're creeping upwards, we're losing steam fast, and typically speaking, again, you're gonna see that result in some type of pull towards the downside. There are times where you do melt upwards. That is a very strong, I wouldn't even say a very strong possibility, but it is a possibility. And what that, I did not mean to click that, get out of here. There is a possibility there. And what that looks like is Bitcoin doing this, chop, 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 push upwards. If we get good news, that's possible. And the cool part is, since the RSI was resetting, there is room to the upside, but that just doesn't happen frequently. That's like a 30-25% chance. So because of that, I'm not just gonna bet that that's gonna happen personally. And so whenever I do see this kind of reset and bearish divergence, I do get a little bit more cautious, like we're probably gonna see some sort of pullback. Now, from a structural perspective, that does also hold true. Typically speaking, when Bitcoin starts to chop, 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 chop like this, and there's overlap between the pumps and the dumps and the pumps and the dumps, it's usually a sign that a pullback's on the way. What you can see here, for example, is like this, right? Bitcoin's price was doing great, getting these strong moves to the upside, but then we started to get this chop, 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 and then we pulled back towards the downside. Let's go back to other examples as well. I mean, you can kind of see it yourself. This is an example of Bitcoin melting up, which is interesting, right? We got this push to the upside. It went chop, 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 chop. Then it got one more push to the upside, which was cool, but then it got the pullback, right? You see what I mean? I'm going a little bit farther back. I'm trying to find an example. Here you go. This is another one from a more macro perspective. Bitcoin's going up real good. Chop, 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 chop. Then we get this pullback to the downside. And so, or look right there as well. You know, Bitcoin going up. Here, boom, chop, 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 pull back, okay? And so because of that, typically when I start to notice this chop, chop, chop from Bitcoin, it just, again, it's a sign that you're very likely seeing that momentum die off, and a pullback to the downside is more likely. And if we do melt up, cool, great, but again, that's a 1 in 4 chance that that happens. I just don't quite, I'm not going to bet on that. Now, as a result of this, what am I doing? Well, I'm actually not doing anything. I'm not selling. I'm not doing any of that. I did have a short-term trade that I opened with a stop loss under 64K. I opened that trade right back here, somewhere right around this little area. It's hard to tell on the 4-hour charts. It was somewhere back there, and off of that, I am still open on that. I do believe that was on 8 or 6x leverage, sorry. So I'm probably up somewhere around, I think it's right. I need to go check it. It's over on Margex. It's somewhere around 60% or 70% or so. Tiny little trade, don't really care about it too much, but I did take a little bit of profit off that short-term trade. But on my macro trades, I'm not doing anything. I'm just leaving them alone because I do expect, again, in the macro that Bitcoin will continue higher. So why would I close down trades right now? And so because of that, my overall thesis right now is that there's a good size, decent sized chance that we do get a bit of a pullback here in the short term now that Bitcoin is somewhat waning. But overall, it's not that big of a deal because in the macro things are looking good and there's no point in stressing about it. And so I just wanted to update you about what's going on here with Bitcoin, give you a bit of a warning that we may see a pullback and there's no need to panic. Don't forget, if you do want to trade some Bitcoin as these moves do happen, you should use that Bitcoin BTCC link down below and go check it out and let me know what you think. You're going to possibly get up to $10,000 in bonuses, 40% lower trading fees, and a 10% deposit bonus. The deposit bonus is the craziest shit, dude. You go deposit, $6,000, you're getting $600 back just like that. Imagine what you could do with that. So go check that out down below. Let me know what you think. I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.